Mr. Division Lead Director, Toastmaster Palmiraj, Area 11 Director, Toastmaster John, my dear good friend, Toastmaster Richard, distinguished Toastmasters who are all seated here, spending the precious evening, and the lovely members, guest members from all of the clubs, area directors, and my dear members of Jubail Philipino Toastmasters Club. Good evening.
Good evening.
I have to, first, I like starting I don't want to call this as a keynote speech. I want to call this as a kind of a discussion with all of you here. There are much more, I would say, much more wise men and women sitting here than me. So let me call it as a discussion. That's one way you can keep the pressure a little low on it. That's a strategy, I'm always talking to you. Can we have the lights on so that I will look at who's awake? It's easier. Is the screen quite visible even with the lights on, or you prefer to dim it? It's visible, right?
It's all over the place.
Because it was Toastmaster Mustafa, always high quality, high definition, high resolution. Your program quality director, right? So you can trust his quality. By coming back to this, I like to keep it as a nice discussion, always. That way it keeps it light, interesting. But whenever I'm here in Jubail Filipino Toastmasters Club, which is very rare, but whenever I get to meet any one of those Jubail Filipino Toastmasters Club, I get any member or members, when I see them anywhere, I get a very nice and a different feeling. Maybe I can see the quizzical looks on your faces. Okay, let me give you more clues about it. There's something very positive. I feel so nice, so different. The members of other Toastmasters Club, do you also have the same feeling? When you meet the Jubail Filipino Toastmaster outside or here, anywhere, you get a nice feeling, very different feeling. And I think I owe you a feedback. That feedback was as proud members of Filipino Toastmasters Club, but because it's a good feedback. Why I get the feeling? Let me tell you why I feel so nice and I feel different meeting every one of you, either here or outside. If you notice, there's one peculiar but consistent quality among all the Filipino Toastmasters in Jubail. They're always enthusiastic. There is so much of energy effusing from them, if I have to say that, if I have to use that word. Except for now, for some reasons you're not very enthusiastic. I'm telling you, I'm giving you a compliment. There's so much of energy, so much of enthusiasm, and probably, if I have to attribute the reason for that, just again my opinion, I could be right or wrong, but I think it comes from an expectation of not expecting anything. They just want to have fun. They just want to enjoy. My very close colleague, Mark, is also a Filipino. One of your favorite Toastmasters, I know he keeps visiting. Every time I meet them, they're always, I'm sure they're having their own problems, but they're always full of enthusiasm. They're having fun. They're enjoying doing what they're doing. Please maintain that beautiful quality that you have as a club, as a community, as members of this beautiful society. Just take that quality into your work. Take that quality into your Toastmasters and take that quality into your life. Life will be beautiful. And I love you for that. And that is how I feel so special whenever I meet anyone, every one of you. But by the way, there are companies, organizations all around the world hiring consultants like McKinsey and others, paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, doing a lot of assessments about companies and organizations on how they should do their business better. They do months and months of studies, asking you all kinds of questions. And at the end, they say that you have to do this, this, and this. Plus, you need to enjoy your work environment. You need to have fun at doing what you're doing. And you guys are doing it all right. Okay? Don't you want to applaud for yours? Just keep doing it. Gotta keep doing it. Have fun at doing what you're doing, and just add little purpose. Add little Toastmastering. Toastmastering is going to be wonderful. You're going to have great life. Okay? With that salutation, I would like to just straight away start this discussion for the Jubail Filipino Toastmasters. I just titled this theme after I saw your theme for the evening. By the way, congratulations on your 5th anniversary, and I wish you many, many more happy returns of this wonderful day with more and more members. sparkle. So I thought we would have this discussion on how to make our teams sparkle. Or discuss about how do teams sparkle. Okay? It's always good to start with a question into any discussions. And I will be the first one to ask the question, so that I don't have to answer. Okay? So let me start this, because you're not looking very serious. I just want to okay? Now, let me put a little context here. Okay, how do teams sparkle, or how to make teams sparkle? What is the context? I'm going to give a little more clarification on this question. We all come across different walks of our lives, right? And we get to see a lot of teams, different teams in our community, mostly in our organizations, where we are in business, we get paid, and we also pay people, and also in Toastmasters. But we see that some teams sparkle and dazzle and do their job like anything. Do you agree? Some teams are having fun doing what they're doing. Plus they're also performing, like a music orchestra, like a great football team. They have fun doing what they're doing. Sometimes I wonder, the movie artists, they have fun doing what they're doing, especially the good ones. And this is there on one side. On the other side, you have the teams who are facing lots of challenges. Okay, challenge is fun, fine, but they fail miserably. They don't dazzle, they are very dull, they are boring. Teams get frustrated. You can feel it in some teams that life is miserable. Some people want to get out of those teams as early as possible, right? People start unlearning whatever little qualities that they have, and they are into all kinds of problems, stress. Now, how is that some teams sparkle? This is the question. Why is that some people don't? And why is that some team performances are miserable? Some teams, let me clarify on these teams, which are not good teams, might produce an output, might reach their objectives, but being part of the team is not fun. But being part of this team is great fun. People love to be part of this team. Why is that? Before you shoot your answers, because I'm going to repeat this question once again. How many of you know about the team evolution theory? I didn't talk about it in the club officers training, where some of you are present, by Bruce Tuckman. It's called the team evolution theory by Bruce Tuckman. This is one of the old theories, but very well practiced, and it is applicable to all situations in this world, even in this era. There's modern technology, and so many things keep changing in different eras, but still this theory is applicable. All teams go through 5 recognizable stages from the time they are formed till the time they perform. And they are called forming, performing, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. Let me repeat it. Forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. What happens in these stages? Any one of you have been exposed to this in any of the training programs? Forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. Okay, let me tell you what happens. In the norming stage, we'll just very quickly talk about it. Okay? In a norming stage, normally, I want to take a very simple example. Okay? All of us are graduates here, right? When we get into the college, after the school, we would have been super duper performers in the schools, or an average performer. If you get into an engineering classroom or anywhere, any undergrad classroom, the moment we get into that different university, different environment, what comes to our mind? We want to get to know people, right? We want to get acquainted. We want to get introduced as nicely as possible. We want to look really good, right? Like if you in Toastmasters context, a nice suit, a nice tie, and a very good handbag, everything. So that we want to be in our best for Toastmasters and Madam Toastmasters, okay? In the respective categories, okay? And we want to be very nice. We want to be introduced the very best possible. We want to show our best face, even though we may have a lousy face. Just joking. All Toastmasters are good. But technically speaking, what happens in the forming stage? The team is announced. Members come in, people try to understand each other, relate each other. How is Toastmaster Kaliraj? How is Toastmaster Richard? How is Toastmaster Saragopal and DTM Venkat? I start gauging, man, Toastmaster Kaliraj. What kind of personalities? Who can I build chemistries with? Who's got those private sides? Who's got those difficult sides? We start judging. That is human mind, let's be frank. Immediately we start judging people and judging situations, and we also try to find out what is our role. What are going to be my boundaries? What is the scope for me to, impress? What is the scope for me to, capitalize out of this? You understand the word capitalization? Human minds, especially, why are we sitting here 22-3 hours of precious time? We want to do something. Of course, Toastmaster Richard has promised very good food. That's why it's an army. 5-star. But it's not that we are here for, right? We want to take away something. We want, as human minds, we want to benefit through those intangible gains that we get out of any situation. So that capitalization, we are always in the forming stage. We start scanning what is there in the forming. Okay, that is the forming stage. This is applicable to any situation, any team, anywhere in this world, even if it is outside the earth. Then comes the challenging stage, the storming stage. Storming stage is when, any team is formed for what purpose? Why are teams formed? To perform, to achieve, to reach a goal, to achieve certain objectives. Okay? The objectives are clear, goals are clear, but what happens in the storming stage is how we are going to do what we have to do. That gets debated. How many of you have been part of division conference teams? You will not be nominated again. Don't worry. You don't have to go through the storming. See what happens, typically people come from different sections, different clubs, different environments, different nationalities, different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. So we all have our own styles, right? And you will see, what is this guy? We don't do things like this in our club. In Arabian Toastmasters, there's full of life. When Toastmaster Omar Thomas says, let's do it, everyone says, let's do it. But when Toastmaster Omar Thomas is going to say, let's do it in division conference team, okay? What are these guys? Lack of enthusiasm. Nothing wrong with Toastmaster Omar Thomas or them, but everyone's style is different, right? People come from different backgrounds, different societies, so there's a lot of difference of opinions start cropping up. People have different styles of achieving things or doing things. You are not in agreement with somebody's style. You feel this is better. Sometimes the priorities change. You agree with me? Yes. Priorities. Well, what is the top priority for me may not be enough for you. You may want to do it in a different order. You want to attach different importance. All these things do come up in the storming stage on how to reach. There are so many hows. Okay? H-O-W-S. Okay? So many hows. But which house, how the strategy, the approach, the methodology, what you want to adopt, there will be difference of opinions. That is one. Number two, some people will feel after the forming stage, when they get into the storming stage, okay, I am very powerful. I have a bigger portfolio. I can do many things. Come on, guys. Somebody else, oh my God, these guys told me that I have to do this, but my goal is limited. I'm going to. So people start pushing their boundaries. They start redefining their goals. The storming stage, long story short, is the most difficult stage. Okay. So, but where people try to understand, there's a lot of suspicion in a team. So it's a team. It cannot easily function. And after the storming stage, which is taking a lot of time, you get to the dynamic stage. What happens? You start trusting. Okay. I understand Toastmaster Zakaria Babu has a different style of doing things, but he's actually a beautiful guy. He says it in a different style, but he really means what I also mean. So we start understanding. There is chemistries, there are alliances, there are associations that get formed, and teams start norming. We start agreeing on the approach that we all need to adopt to achieve a particular end. That is norming. And after norming, it's all the execution. It's simple mechanical execution. The approaches are agreed, ways are agreed, strategies are agreed. We put the strategies into execution. That is performing. And after that, the job is done, the cross-functional team or a joint team has done its task, adjourned. Plus, things are done. Some people even don't like adjourning. You know why? Why?
Board settings.
Sorry? End of it, but still, some people don't like this yet. Because only you have to go and do a different task. You are going to getting out of the comfort zone. People like doing what they are good doing it. Okay? They don't want to go into a difference. That is also a challenge. But all teams in this world have to go through this. Okay? Now, here is the interesting statistic. Any team, whether it is a football team or a business team, they have to go through this. Nearly 70 to 80% of the teams in this world, the mixed cross-functional teams, do not cross the stage, the storming stage. They fail. Okay? Fail not to achieve the end, the objective, but fail to function as a beautiful team. They fail to function like these teams, and they become like these teams. Where there will be some taskmasters who will go and get things done. That is why team formation, team performance, for team to sparkle and have fun is not an easy task. Now it is question and answer time. What is your answer? What makes the teams sparkle? What makes those teams cross the one most challenging stage, which is the storming stage?
Stirring.
Okay, let me put it in a positive connotation. What makes teams sparkle? Camaraderie. Yes, definitely is one.
Unity.
Sorry?
Unity.
Camaraderie is very essential, very much. Sorry?
Unity.
Unity. Okay, it's slightly a little more formal terminology than camaraderie. Unity, yes. But what brings in, what ensures that the unity or the camaraderie is all pervasive, consistent, always present? Understanding. Sharing of ideas. Okay. Well, I'm just trying to catalyze the room around.
Trust.
Okay. Sorry?
Trust.
Trust. Yeah, trust is very, very important. But trust is a quality within a team. But something that you that is managing the whole team, something ensures that there is enough trust. Something ensures that the system is put in place, a practice is put in place, so that there is enough trust and transparency.
Order. Cooperation.
Cooperation.
Attitude.
Attitude, yes, attitude is an individual attitude that needs to be consistent with all the members. Let's say you have a wonderful attitude and I have a terrible attitude. I don't like your face, for instance. You have a beautiful face. And I start showing faces. But all the members' attitude should be more or less consistent. What makes that attitude consistency possible within a team?
Respect.
Mutual respect. What brings, what drives, what demands, what makes sure that there is consistent or equal amount of respect between team members? Good, we are debating. Now the room is light. We are going to have appetizers soon. Come on. Yes, ma'am. Maturity. Which one? Sorry? Sorry?
The goal to achieve is common for all.
A goal, setting the goals clearly. Okay, that's fine. But something, what is the force? If I have to associate, let me clarify what I'm trying to get at. I know I'm trying to get a lot of answers. I have the answer. So, it's easy to believe. But what is, if you have, okay, all these things are things that are required. All of them are wonderful, beautiful answers, beautiful shots, attitude, camaraderie, cooperation, trust, goal orientation, goal clarity, expectations being clear. All these things are very, very essential. All these things are systems and behavior. Attitude, yes, individual attitude, individual behavior. These are all essential elements, essential life systems that need to be in place so that every team functions like this team, not like this team. But there is one umbrella factor, if I have to say that. There's one causal factor which makes sure that all these things that you said do exist and they are practiced very sincerely as leaders. Sorry? Leadership? Of course. That is why he is a distinguished Toastmaster. And a very senior discipline. The fact it is leadership. It is the leadership. It is the leadership that makes sure all these things are always prevailing and pervasive and going to be consistent. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you a little more. Yes, it is the leadership. It is definitely the leadership that makes sure that all these things are always existing. How many of you have heard of Peter Drucker? Mr. Peter Drucker. He's a great educationist, great author, management consultant, manager. He's also considered to be a management guru. And let's look at what he said about leadership. We talked about teams, we talked about organization, we talked about communities, Toastmasters, anywhere in this world. Okay? There are only 3 things that happen naturally in any organization. Friction, confusion, and underperformance. Everything else requires leadership. We are all leaders, right? Now, if you go back to the storming stage, okay? I mean, none of us here can be better than Peter Drucker, okay? Because he was born almost a century back. He was in the early last century. If you go to the storming stage, friction, confusion, and underperformance is very much our characteristics of storming stage. If you are going to, listen to those frictions, if you are going to listen to those confusions, you will only be motivating underperformance and politics, unnecessary politics. That's not leadership. Leadership drives. That is why many teams fail. Where in the absence of proper leadership, a team cannot perform. In the absence of very good leadership, leadership is not, okay, we are going to talk about it for the whole discussion. Leadership is not, being well dressed or having a title or having a position. Leadership is not a science, but leadership is about being scientific in your approach towards human elements. That is leadership. How do you remain scientific? How do you keep yourself updated? How do you keep yourself open-minded? Okay, that is leadership. And in the absence of such a leadership, there will only be friction, confusion, and underperformance. Is it clear? That is why teams do not cross the storming stage. If the teams are unable to cross the storming stage and perform like this team, then question the leadership around that. As Toastmasters, as professionals, as family members, as community leaders. Okay. And what is good leadership? Good leadership sets the norm for the right individual behavior. And when there is a right individual behavior practiced by most of the members, it sets the norm for right team behavior. And right team behavior promotes great society behavior. And great society behavior promotes country level behavior, state level behavior. It goes on and on and on. But there is one beautiful word that we all keep using in our life, in the community and organization and in Toastmasters. There is one beautiful word which defines all these things. Do you know what's that word? What can you give one word for that can represent all these things? Leadership actually works on that. And then it makes all these things possible. Influence, yes, influence is a very important element of leadership. I will take 2 answers. Ethics, yes. Ethics is also a very important part of the system of an organization. Yes, ethics is very close. Again, distinguished Toastmaster is also very close. Ethics is very, very close.
Character.
Sorry? Character is also quite close. Have you heard about this culture? We all very often use the word called culture. Leadership puts in place the right culture in an organization, in a Toastmaster organization, in a company, in a business, in a family, in a community. And I'm repeating these things again and again. What is culture? How do we define culture? We have people coming from different cultures sitting in this room. Norms. Culture, I think, this Toastmaster, it's almost, he said the right answer. Culture is a common set of value and belief systems. That's why I said ethics. It's a common set of value and belief systems practiced by a particular group, organization, or community. That is culture. The common set of when all this right individual behavior, camaraderie, cooperation, attitude, trust, respect, all these things are common set of values and belief systems. So, right leadership drives the right culture in place. And what happens? The right culture drives all these things in place. Consistent behavior standards between all members. You remember Toastmaster Richard and Peri, good, bad. It won't be like that. It will be consistent. And it is also going to make sure that what you need to expect. The expectations become very clear, that the culture is very strong. You know, you cannot say culture is, the right word to describe culture, having a strong culture and a weak culture. A strong culture means across the organization, across the group, that everything is consistent and everything is clear. All people behave in very similar manner. It normally, but in a club, in a community club, okay, in any particular, there will be cultures. There will be a different culture in Philipino Toastmasters Club than Elite Toastmasters Club or Arabian Toastmasters and Jubail Toastmasters. So, it sets the expectations and it also puts in place right systems. You need right systems and processes to achieve what you want to achieve. The DCPs and goals are just measures. Can you achieve a measure by putting the measure as a target? You have to have proper processes and systems. Okay? Otherwise the measure will fail. So when all these things are in place, you have great team spirit, great work environment. Everybody knows what he needs to do and how he needs to behave and what he needs to use to achieve what he wants to achieve or what he's supposed to achieve or what she's supposed to achieve. And what is the mother factor which drives everything is the leadership. It's the leadership which makes sure the right culture is in place so that everything else is in place. Culture needs to be worked upon. I'm trying to simplify things. You know, to spread the right culture across the organization, it takes sometimes years, especially if you're a business-oriented organization. Okay, for you to set the right culture. We are in Jubail. We work for industries. What is the culture? Safety and sustainability. Let's say all of you are going to join a journalism industry, or all of us are going to jump into the journalism industry. What would be the culture that needs to be strongly practiced in a journalism industry?
Honesty.
Truth and honesty, freedom of speech. Okay. And today we need to have a lot of courage. Otherwise we may not exist after a while. Okay, but make sure that you practice the right culture, okay, for a right system and right environment. And that leadership has to ensure. Now, we have talked a lot about leadership. We are all leaders. We are all practicing leaders. And from different walks of life. But in my humble opinion, you know, practical wisdom demands, as practicing leaders, that we need to constantly recalibrate ourselves. How good a leader we are. How do we do that? Only I am talking. How do we do that? Practicing leaders. There are two things we need to do. Of course, you will have two different things. I will have two different things. Can we see whether it is going to match? I think, in my opinion, you need to do two things to be successful, lively, strong, practicing leaders. Otherwise, we will be suit, tie, and die. We don't want to be suit, tie, and die leaders, right?
Yes.
We want that. We want to, but we need to be strongly successful, practicing, appreciable leaders. We need to do two things in our opinion. What are those two things? Some of you are saying,
Understand your team.
understand your team. And if you ask, let me just sum up quickly. One is, we need to recalibrate ourselves based on the wisdom statements on leadership by those great leaders, widely acknowledged leaders, those legends whose legacy is still being practiced and followed. Okay, I cannot calibrate myself against what Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela said, because they are great and nothing. But I need to check myself whether I'm bordering somewhere on those lines in doing whatever little leadership tasks that I'm doing in practice. If not, I need to recalibrate myself. That's very important. If you want to be a successful practicing leader who wants to make your teams work, who wants the influence, who wants to put the right culture in place, who wants to do all those wonderful things, you need to do that. There's no excuse. And sometimes it demands a lot of reading, a lot of listening, which most of us have forgotten after our college days. Okay, and number two, not people here, people outside. Here all learned leaders. Number two is, nowadays, everything is changing in this world,
Yes.
right? Everything changing. The world is becoming it's a globalized village. And technology is explosion, artificial intelligence, everything is changing. So like in software, there is version 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. There is also leadership 2.0, 3.0. We need to constantly update ourselves. Otherwise, we can become outdated. We become old software. People throw us. We become a floppy disk. Do you remember the floppy disk?
Yes.
Good. My son may not even know a floppy disk. Okay. So we don't want to become floppy disk. So we need to constantly update ourselves on leadership. Now is the fun part. We are going to engage. I'm going to engage you also. So as practicing leaders, can we define leadership? Silence is leadership. I understood the true meaning today. Laughing is also leadership.
It's the ability to influence others.
Beautiful. It's the ability to influence others. Yes. There is no one definition. I mean, we all know that there is no one complete definition. There is leadership as God. Leadership is a mighty philosophy. So it has got so many definitions by so many wonderful leaders and legends. Leadership is influence. John Maxwell definition is leadership means influence. If you cannot influence, you cannot be a leader. The test of leadership is influence. Anything else? Leadership starts with influence. All John Maxwell.
Lead by example.
Lead, be a role model and lead by example. That is leadership. One more, and then I'm going to tell you what I do.
Educate.
Sorry?
Educate.
Educate. You educate yourself and educate your people. Okay, that would be leadership. Richard was going to say something. Okay. Now, do you remember this gentleman in this picture? Do you recognize him?
Mr. Smedley.
Perhaps he's Smedley. He had this, I said it, I always like saying this in many forms. One of the most complete definition for leadership came from him. And so very apt and appropriate for our leadership practices. What is that? DTM Venkat will always say it by heart. He's the walking dictionary for Toastmasters. Like Dr. George is for English. Okay? Leadership is the ability to look ahead, plan ahead, look ahead, think ahead, plan ahead, and influence people to go ahead after the plan. A beautiful definition, isn't it? All encompassing. Is there something more you want to add? I think everything is there. It's there. Look ahead, think ahead, plan ahead, and influence people to go ahead after the plan. All those tasks are so very important. But the most important one, most beautiful one, most peculiar part of leadership is to influence people. That takes lots of time, lots of energy, lots of efforts. It's not easy to influence a human mind. Human mind by nature is biased. Especially after we grow up, we get biased. I know everything. This is a tendency of all human beings. Okay? You know, if you want to grow, if you want to update, if you want to recalibrate, you need to know what you don't know. You need to know what you don't know. And you need to get to know what you need to know as early as you have to know. This is a difficult task. Because we have a barrier as human beings, including me, everyone, all of us. We have a barrier called ego. What is ego? In this context, ego is an insecurity. It's a barrier of insecurity. No, I need to protect myself. I need to make sure my suit, tie, and dye doesn't get deciphered. You understand that?
Yes.
People should not make out that what I don't know. So I think we need to break those barriers. Okay? That's so very important. And to influence the fluid human minds, it's not easy. You need to be really learned. You need to be really good, really strong as leaders. But you need to be very humble. Okay, you need to be polite. You need to bring out all those beautiful qualities which all these wonderful leaders, Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela, brought out to the extent that you can to connect with people. Okay? So that is Ramsey's manual. A lot of words. I simplified this into a much smaller version. Leadership, and I call it leadership, is always about two always. Very easy. Leadership is always about two always. Always stay inspired. And always go inspire. Go and inspire. Go inspire. It's very simple. Right? It sounds very simple, but it is very difficult. What do you do to always stay inspired? Toastmaster Abdul, a very good speaker. How do you stay always inspired?
Reading.
Great. It's by reading, learning. Okay, you don't have to, I'm not advising, or leadership doesn't advise you to always go and read. Reading is great. But you can listen.
Yes.
Real, honest listening, open-minded listening.
Learn from
You can do, practice. Learning by doing. So many things, there are so many forms. By observing, watching a movie sometimes is a great way of learning.
Learning from experiences.
Oh, there are great movies. How many of you here love watching movies? I know Filipinos like movies. I think everyone here hates movies. Is there anyone who loves? There are movies that are great. If you, for example, I don't know how many of you watched Sully. Did you watch Sully?
Yeah.
Did you watch Captain Phillip?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. How many of you watched the movie Invictus?
Yes.
Nelson Mandela. The biopic of Nelson Mandela. All great movies. Shawshank's Redemption. Shawshank's Redemption. I keep fumbling that Shawshank's Redemption. That movie was a flop because the title was very difficult. But the movie was a great movie. I will say this, by the way, Morgan Freeman said this. He is the lead character of this movie. All these movies, you can learn so much. Good Will Hunting. Okay. You don't have, and what I'm saying, I love reading. Many people in this room might love reading, but reading is not the only way for you to learn. There are so many other ways, and today, especially audiobooks are there. To stay always inspired, learn. To go inspire, practice, join Toastmasters. Right? We are all trying to inspire. Good. So this is the simple definition of leadership. I'm just going to get into sharing some protocols to practice leadership. Okay. Practicing leadership and making leadership as a habit is a challenge for others, not for those who are in Toastmasters. Okay. One of your icons here. Right? All of you love them, right?
Yes.
I also love them. Great. Manny.
Back here.
Okay. My second name, I'm little Manny. Manny is great. We have one Manny. He's not a boxer. Manny Pacquiao. Great person. All of them are great people. But I don't think, except for maybe Manny Pacquiao, now he is a senator.
Yes.
I don't think other leaders, and Nelson Mandela became a former leader at the end, towards the end of his life.
Yes.
All of them, did they have a title? Steve Jobs was an artist. Okay, Jack Ma is an artist. He's retired. But all of them they became leaders by making leadership as a habit. Okay, so now how do we, of course, we have to live few centuries to reach their levels. But how do we make leadership as a habit? I'm going to share with you 5 protocols. What are protocols? It's not a big word. Some simple mind tools, what we need to do on a day-to-day basis to make leadership as a habit. Okay, this is from my learnings from Ravin Sharma's Personal Mastery Academy. Okay, he's a great coach. He's my inspiration. He's my guru. I'm sure many of you are also following. Number 1, we need to install a mindset to lead without a title. Install a mindset to lead without a title. We don't need these titles. Okay? I need titles. Okay? But I'm showing respect to Toastmasters. That's why that is. We need to install a mindset to lead without a title. What does it mean? Leadership is not about your office. Leadership is not about your position. You don't have to be a prime minister or a chief minister or a president or a general manager or a manager or even a superintendent to be a leader. Leadership. Do you think so? Yes? Do you agree? I'm sure everyone knows. Leadership is a mindset. Sincere mindset. Leadership is a heart set. Leadership is not about having any formal authority. Leadership is a way of being. Leadership is a way of operating your day-to-day life. That is leadership. And how you do it. It might all sound a little abstract. We are going to get a little more clarity into this. Look at what this gentleman said. Look at Ravin Sharma. If you are a breathing human being, you can be a leader. It's a powerful statement. he said it many years ago. And now many people know about it. If you are a breathing human being, you can be a leader. You not only have the opportunity to be a leader, you have the responsibility to behave as a leader.
Yes.
If you fail to do this, you are spoiling yourself. You're losing all the purpose of your living. Okay. You have the opportunity to be a leader, not only in Toastmasters, not only in your work, not only in your community, not only in your society, but even in your personal life. How do you do that? Start thinking in your mind that you are a leader and practice leadership. Mr. Peri, that is something nice to hear, but how do you do that? Your day-to-day, it all depends on how you plan your days, how you begin your days, how you work through your days, how you interact with people, how you connect with people. You know, if I can see, when we see, I'm no offense, even I was sitting at this table, but normally, as human beings, as leaders, as we tend to mingle with group we are convenient or comfortable mingling with, right?
Right.
Sure.
Why does it happen? I'm asking here, once school faculty especially. Why does it happen? We like mingling with people from our culture, from our part of the world, who have our homogeneous thinking in technical terms.
Like minds.
We have difficulty in dealing with differences. Differences of any kind. I don't want to be specific here. Many kinds. Leaders, all those wonderful pictures that we saw, all of them love dealing with differences. And they have their own ways of dealing with differences. We can develop our own ways of dealing with these differences. If we can connect with people who have a difference with us, and we can ensure that we employ good empathy. I'm using a lot of words. And I need to understand his position. I have to think from his point of view, or her point of view. And still, if I can make the positive impact on that person and connect with that person and make him or her feel better than the way she or he felt before meeting me, then I'm a leader. We don't need a title for that. Is it clear? Or am I speaking too fast? Every one of us, I'm going to give you an example here, so that the concept becomes clear. So be ready, I'm going to catch one of you. Okay, every one of us here, every one of us sitting in this room has the opportunity and the ability to go to our workplace and not just do our job as a job, but as a mastery every day. We don't need a title for that. And every one of us living here on this earth has the opportunity to create a positive influence on the people around us, especially when there is so much hatred, so much negativity in today's world. We don't need a title for that. Okay? How many of you like the gentleman who is right now missing from this room? Toastmaster Mark Willin. I know it's a stupid question. I think every one of us is going to raise their hand. I think all of us like it, right? Yeah, he has this smiling nature. He's such a helpful person, friendly personality. It just comes from his heart. Of course, he's I'm giving him all the compliments for his wisdom. Because I think leadership comes from here. That's what I'm saying. All these great leaders, they lived their leadership principles. That, and Robin Sharma says that you cannot be a better leader than the human being that you are. Okay? Leadership is, what does it mean? Leadership is not a choice. Leadership has to be a habit. You cannot decide that today I'll be a wonderful, beautiful, nice leader with a lot of empathy. Tomorrow I will hate you. It's not possible. I'm not going to connect with people. We just talked about your Toastmaster. Something very bad. Everyone liked it. So, this is the summary of installing a mindset to lead without a title. Any questions on this? Before we move into the next protocol. I think probably I over-explained this. Number 2, protocol number 2 is the job of a leader is to grow more leaders. This is essential. Leadership is a legacy. Okay, it has to continue. It cannot stop with me or stop with you. You need to create more and more leaders. As leaders, we will all be very busy, to produce. Like I work for a company, I work for an organization as a leader. Most of you are. Your jobs are going to be very demanding. You'll be required to be very creative, very let's say, optimize things, produce things, look at things differently, get over the challenges in your task. But still, if you're a leader, you need to find time to develop and grow more leaders. How sincerely we do it will serve. I mean, it's going to determine how good a leader we are. And if you're a leader, and if you're not developing your other leaders faster than your peers in the industry, you understand? If you're not developing more leaders faster than your peers, you're not a leader, you're a follower. You have to lead. All the great people did. But how do we do it? How do we develop more leaders? Toastmaster, this day. Toastmaster job. How do we grow more leaders? Any time.
I have four statements. I do and you watch. I do, you assist. You do, I assist, and you do and I watch.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think, gentlemen, I think that's very much good. How do we grow more leaders? By sharing. I mean, we do it a lot. We do that a lot in Toastmasters. When we do mentoring, we do training, we share our mastery models, we share our excellence models. Okay? Whatever the best practices that we have adopted. Toastmasters, for example, gives a lot of guidance. But again, I don't want to restrict it to Toastmasters. Okay? If you have to make leadership as a habit, it cannot be only in Toastmasters. Okay? It has to be in your life. Okay? How do you practice it at work? For instance, you have to celebrate. Again, sharing and celebrating by encouraging, by celebrating your fellow employees' success or even sometimes failures. Collaborating, having collaboration models where you are going to be a mentor and get things done. Get people trained as things are being done. Okay, this is a way of growing leaders. How do we grow more leaders in family matters? Sorry, I just trying to engage you.
By taking them out of their comfort zone.
Yes, good. That's definitely taking them out of the comfort zone. Introducing them to nice habits. Great books could be one way. Great parenting. Okay? But in today's generation, in today's context, in today's environment, growing leaders and grooming children is one of the most challenging tasks than any other task. Because they're exposed to so much in this world which we never imagined is going to happen. So if we have to grow more leaders at home, as parents, we tend to make one mistake. We try to force things on their head, which we fail at, right? We force our ideas, and it probably, I might have want to become a singer. I should not force my son or daughter to become a singer. I have to identify what are the areas of interest, what are the trends, what are the such, and we are dialoguing, discussing, especially in today's generation. Now you need to follow their ways to get things done. Introducing them to nice habits, books, great parenting, YLP. Programs like YLP and value-added soft skills addition to the new generation. That is growing more leaders at home. Okay? But the job of a leader is to grow more leaders. That's the second protocol. The third one, and a very essential one, is to follow the 3I practice and install that within you. What are the 3 I's? Some of you can guess this. I stands for I. I stands for something else. Inspire, influence, and impact. Remember these things. As leaders, all these things came of you. Some of you shot those answers already. You cannot be a great leader without these 3 things by being practiced by you on a day-to-day life. When you are going to be within your team members. You cannot influence your team members without inspiration, without ability to influence, and without being impactful in doing what you're doing. Okay? Inspire. Does anyone in this room believe that this leader is a great example of inspiration? All of us. I think all of us. All of us are carrying it. Right? All of us are carrying this inspiration as a great product, as a great supreme consumer experience that he gave to this world. It was because of his inspiration. I'm going to tell you a little story here. How many of you think Steve Jobs was an easy guy to work with? I have told this story before, he was an extremely difficult person to work with. He was a taskmaster. Okay, he has this reputation of firing employees if they are not anywhere falling close to his expectation. When Steve Jobs was a kid, when he was 18, when he was 17, 18 years old, his dad once asked him to go and paint the fence outside his school. Paint the fence outside his school. Steve Jobs went, performed his task. After a few hours, promptly reported back, "Dad, I did the painting." The dad goes around, inspects the fence, and said, "Steve, you've done a wonderful job. You painted the outside of the fence. But what about inside? You have not done." And Steve said, "But Dad, who is going to look at the inside?" And his dad said, "We will, son. We will." This stayed on with it. His dad inspired with this quality to make the inside beautiful. A few decades later, fast forward, Steve Jobs was sitting with his development team where they were about to develop their Apple Macintosh computer. And Steve Jobs looked at his team of engineers, and said, "Guys, I don't know what you're going to do, but this product has to be very different, substantially different from what is available in the marketplace. I want the outside of the computer to be so simple but very elegant. But I want the inside of the computer, which is some of the motherboard and stuff like that, to be so beautiful that it should bring tears in one's eyes." Engineers, like some of us here, right? They looked at Steve and said, "Well, who is going to look at the inside?" And Steve said, "Me." The point here is that is inspiration. The persistent to stick on with what you feel is the way to be done, and also proving it to the people around you that that is a higher order way of achieving what they want to achieve. That is inspiration. That's the ability to inspire people. And Steve Jobs inspired his business, inspired his company, and ensured that he achieved product differentiation through supreme customer experience. That's why he achieved success. Have you seen the packaging that you receive in your Apple phone or the machines? Even the packaging looks very different. The person responsible was Steve Jobs. He wanted the packaging to look different. He wanted the consumer to have the feel that he is receiving an Apple product, because he is taking the Apple product out of the box, out of this package. That is inspiration. So as leaders, we need to be inspiration. And it is not easy to stay inspired and more inspiring. It requires a lot of learning, a lot of focus, a lot of listening. If you have to be a great leader, you have to be a great listener. Number 2, influence. John Maxwell, we discovered the test of leadership is the ability to influence others and influence others positively. Okay. And it's not easy. How do you influence others? How do you influence others positively? With your mindset, with your heart set. The way you go about doing everything that you are doing. If you are a speaker, the precision of your languaging skills, the words, the selection, the phrases, the sentences that you adopt to convey what you want to convey will make you a great speaker, an influential speaker. If you are a great task-oriented, a crafts person, the way you go about doing the things will influence others. Okay? And that's very important. As a leader, if you become a leader, you have a position. Let's say I'm a particular party president or a state chief minister. You take the position, but if you are not able to influence, what happens? Silence. What happens? You feel frustrated. As a leader, if you cannot influence your people, you feel frustrated, and your frustration will start cascading. Okay? So it is extremely important to be influential as a leader. And note this one key philosophy. The ability to influence, what does it depend on? It depends on is the magic to influence, which all the great leaders practice. When people see that you believe in what they believe in, or people start knowing that they can believe in what you believe in, they start believing in you. It's not a course, but it's not mine, it's a coach. Simon Sinek said this. When people see that they can believe in what you believe in, they start believing in you. What happens? Something emerges. What you say, trust emerges. As a leader, people need to trust you. People need to see you trustworthy, credible, role model, practicing what you are preaching. Then they start getting influence. It's so very important. As a leader, I think we talked enough about influence. Influence, positive influence, very good. Without influence, you cease to be a leader. How do we achieve? This is before we get into the third I, which is impact. How do we achieve inspirations and influences? A lot of reading. Because remember this key title. Remember this brand title. Leadership is learnership. You cannot be a master leader of your particular area without reading or learning. This great gentleman here, Bill Gates, he reads something like 50 books in a year, 50. All of them non-fiction, which means one book a week. And that's why he manages so many companies. Okay. He said, he has taken, you can watch him on YouTube. Okay. He says about this. He talks about a lot of this. The third one is impact. What is impact? Impact is creating the impact. Less talk, more do. Nowadays, I come across a lot of people from, wanting to do many things. I want to write a blog. I want to become an author. I'm looking at someone, but not necessarily that person. But generally, I want to become an author. Somebody says, I want to become a sportsman. I meet them after a year. Oh, how's the progress? I want to become an author. I want to become a sportsman. I still have a lot of ideas. Their ability to create that impact dilutes. Okay. Remember this right time. Ideation without execution is delusion. Ideation without execution is delusion. Provision. Okay. So how can you create impact? What does it depend upon? Your ability to create an impact. What does it depend upon? The motivation. Okay. Again, our ability to create the impact on the world around us depends on the size of our commitment to the purpose that we stand for. We talked about it before. Some of you mentioned it. It's very important. It's Robin Sharma. The extent of the impact that you can have on the world around you depends on the size of your commitment to the purpose that you stand for. Toastmaster, again I'm going to use Mark. Mark, when he entered, as a young Toastmaster, I'm just quoting this person not because I like him so much, because he's trained. Okay? And I think he doesn't take anything offensively. So very nice, very easy example. I still remember the day he joined any Toastmasters. And I think the first year you went to the district,
Yes.
when you entered the contest.
Yes.
First year you went to the district, and you crossed the semi-finals and reached the finals, right? What was the hard work that you had to put in? The first and second year you did the same thing, right? I don't know, third. See, it is not possible without putting in a lot of commitment to your purpose. If you sweat more in practice, you bleed less in war. Or if you want to bleed less in war, you need to sweat more in practice. Practice breeds performance. And that is commitment to the purpose. So if you want to create an impact, coming back to this, stay strongly committed to the purpose that you stand for. All these great leaders did it. Who is the person? The picture. Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, John F. Kennedy, all these people, we still, those guys are gone long back. The whole world still talks about them. That is the extent of the impact that they left on this world. What is common between all three of them? What happened? All three of them. Martin Luther King, yes, they all got assassinated. The extent of their commitment to the purpose was so strong that they sacrificed their life, they got killed. So we should all get killed. I'm not saying that. But keep your commitment very strong. Okay? Very important. So 3 I's. Inspiration, influence, and impact. Number 4. So number 1, we talked about installing a mindset to lead without title. Number 2, job of a leader is to grow more leaders. Number 3, 3 I's. Inspire, influence, and impact. Number 4, before this is the penultimate one, is quality of your craft. Keep the quality of your craft so high. Be a craftsperson. Because marketplace, you understand the word being crafty or being a craftsperson. Be so good at doing what you do. Okay? It's very difficult to replace as a leader, or as a performer, or as a showman. Be so good at doing what you're doing. Then because marketplace pays for mastery. In today's world, where people are becoming more and more freelancers, companies have started, having people on time consulting jobs. They don't want to have permanent employees. A lot of the Western companies are moved to the state. I'm sure you know that. So here, you need to be a master in doing what you are doing, so that marketplace will pay for your mastery. The marketplace will find its way to your doorstep. Be so good at doing what you do. This is called having your own personal economy. Developing your own personal economy. I know there are a lot of masters sitting in this room, great in doing what they're doing. Okay, Madam Pallavi, I always put her as an example. She does so many things. She lives in our compound. She's so good in so many artistic performances. The way she develops children and teamwork. We are all having all those beautiful qualities, doing so many things. We need to focus, make those things so great and so committed, stay committed to our purpose. Again, focusing on the granularity of our task. Okay, how do you do that? All the great people did it. They didn't chase the income. They only focused on creating an impact. Do not release your work unless it becomes real class, world class, or Jubail class, at least, yeah? Otherwise, don't release your work. And some of these, I know that, how many of you love reading books by great authors? I think many of us, I know many of you read books. Some of those great authors, do you know how much time they really take before releasing their books? I'm talking about even people like Robin Sharma or John Maxwell, or talking about authors like, I don't know how many of you follow Richard Sharma, great economist.
Years.
How many years? Sorry? 2, 3. Some of those extremely exceptionally successful authors take 4 to 5 years to release their books. It's not that they take 4 to 5 years in writing them. They prepare the book, they write or type their book in 1 year. But they keep reviewing, they keep adding, they get reviews, they have secret reviewers. They work on it for 2 to 3 years. And then they release it, at least after 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Depends on who we are talking about. And then it becomes, that's why they are getting into the bestseller list is not easy. We see so many bestsellers, it's not easy. Once again, a great example of quality of your craft. Do not release your work unless you see it as world class. Be the Michelangelo of your task. Be the Celine Dion of your task. Be the Manny Pacquiao of your task. Okay? What does it mean? What does it symbolize to you? Quality, right? Witchcraft is the concept. But the quality of the witchcraft was so wonderful, right? This is a legacy, right? Whether it is, all of them involved. J.K. Rowling, the way she, her concepts, her visual imagery, the characterization, the way she went around creating the script was outstandingly, capturing this world. And David Yates, the guy who made this movie, the way he went around choosing the people who played his characters, the picturization, the graphics, quality of craft. Okay? Quality of craft. You have any? I don't think I need to say anything. Because, if you have listened to her, she's an amazing singer. Those nuances, SPB of Jubail, the way she sings, all those minute notes, she focuses on the quality. She will not release anything that she feels is a commodity class. Everything will be class. Be the Celine Dion of your house. Okay? Final one. As leaders, we talked about the quality of building relationships. Okay? Building relationship is so very vital as leader. We talked about 4 things. Installing a mindset to lead without a title. We talked about growing more leaders. We talked about having those 3 eyes. And we talked about quality of your character. You can be so good in doing all these things. But if you're not building relationships, you will fail as a leader. Right? If you're not good at building relationships, if you don't feel, if you're not able to make the other person who is dealing with you that you're truly committed, truly honest, and you really mean what you say in those small moments of interactions, you're not going to build relationships. You can make them. Some of us, when we talk to the other person, hello, how are you? I'm good. How will the other person feel, right? He's going to feel bad. No, I am so and so, I am this and this, I am so much educated. No. I may look great, and not me. Maybe let's say Toastmaster Mustafa is more handsome. I am Toastmaster Mustafa, I can sing well, I am a very handsome guy. I don't care. How you make the other person, your ability to build those relationships within those little moments are so very important. Because in this world of business, people like doing business with people they like, right? That's why they say, before a person lends you his or her hand, you need to touch their heart. Robin Sharma. Otherwise, you cannot build real relationships. There is so much. It is so very important for leaders. This is a blind road for leaders. Why I'm saying that? Because today, in today's world, there is commoditization of humanity. In today's world, let me repeat it: commoditization of humanity. So much commoditization of humanity taking place because of the virtual world that is dominating today's space. Right? People think that with this connecting, making friends, or connecting in Facebook is building a relationship. And people confuse relationship with the desire to seek attention. There are people who have a desire to seek attention. Okay, that's not relationship. That is shallowness. We should not get caught or get victimized because of those shallow relationships. I shared it with somewhere else before. Sometimes, I don't know if it has happened to you. Sometimes I get friend requests from people known to somebody else and all that. Okay, I accept those friends requests. A few weeks later, a few months later, I get to meet the person somewhere in some place. They don't even look at me. They send a friend request, I ask for a friend request. When I get to meet them after a while, they walk like this. Okay? What is it? Has it happened to you?
Yes.
You know, a lot of victims. Lot of them. And you wonder why did that person send me a friend request? See, again, this is commoditization of humanity. Robin Sharma again says, people today are living under digital anesthesia. We are all living in a world of digital anesthesia. Do you know what is digital anesthesia? You get constantly, busy with this notification, this. How many of you, sit at home while eating and keep looking at the phone? I'm guilty.
Everyone.
At our meeting room, we feel, the digital anesthesia means it keeps you, it numbs you away from the realistic demands and the priorities of this world. And this has become, I'm telling you, this is a serious issue. This is a serious problem with the future generation. They're getting themselves lost into the digital anesthesia. And they feel that, and there are so many filters and this, whether you are good, bad, happy, lousy, always, I am the happiest person in the world. Please look at me and put more likes. Right? It's okay for us. We have seen all those generations. Look at the future generation. Okay? They will face failures in their lives. All of us have to face failures in their lives. How are they going to have the necessary coping mechanisms to come out of those failures if they are so much dominated by digital anesthesia? They will not have the courage and coping mechanism to deal with this world. Keep them away. If it is mobile phone, okay, keep them, stay awake. Have mobile phone free time at home. Have Wi-Fi off time at home. Set your Wi-Fi to put off by 8 o'clock in the evening. Okay? I'm just, these are all much easier said than done. Because many cases, parents are the culprits. But building relationship is so very important if you have to be a greatly successful and practicing leaders. And once again, it is not necessarily, we talked about Facebook, we talked about commoditization, humanity and other things, but also in the way with many commercial and business interfaces, important interfaces are handled in this world today. Airports, hospitals. Let me quickly take the example of hospitals in Jubail. Gross commoditization. When you go and you want to see the doctor, you are waiting there for a long time. You sit in front of the doctor. Doctor, you are about, after you wait there for half an hour, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then get into doctor, I have some kind of a pain here, okay, here, we go for this test. Doctor, please, let me explain this to you. The brain is not always there if the pain is here. What pain? You are a pain, get out! Go and see the medication, go to the pharmacy. We see this, doctors getting restless. Doctors are a very holy profession. They have to build that relationship with the patient. They have to make the patient feel comfortable.
Yes.
But sometimes, because of lack of time and so many other things, they start treating you like a commodity. Doctors have to be building relationship. I'm just saying, using doctors here. I'm not against any particular doctor. Every other profession. Building relationship, because again, the key, note this, take care of the relationships and human connections as a leader, income and so on. The summary.
Install mindset.
Name without title. Second one. Grow more leaders. The job of the leader is to grow more leaders. The third.
3 I's.
Install the 3 I's. Inspire, influence, and impact. And finally, what you build? Relationships. Build relationships, like the way we built in this last few years. I owe everything to my inspiration, my teacher, philosopher. Any questions? Shoots very difficult questions. Make me fumble and fall over from the stage. I feel it is essential to have some discussions, some Q&As after an abstract concept like leadership or teamwork. Any practical challenges that you have faced in Toastmasters or work environment, community, anywhere?
How to retain all the members?
Or to retain all the members?
Good question.
If Filipino Toastmasters is asking this question, that's a big challenge. You remember what I said in the beginning? You guys are, what I like in every Filipino Toastmasters, or Jubail Filipino Toastmasters. To me, you seem to be having fun and doing whatever you're doing. Make the club a place of fun, where people can come here, enjoy, and have fun, and learn. People are not going to learn when they're not going to have fun.
Yes.
People are not going to learn when they're not going to enjoy learning the way they're learning. And this is part-time. This is a voluntary. To retain, I think we can have a half-day workshop on that. But in short, make your club a place of enjoyment and having fun.
Yes.
Attached to the purpose, not just dancing around. This Hardy, I think you are having a question.
I'm just continuously being marveled by your way of.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. But do you have a question? Any difficult questions? DTM Sada always has difficult questions.
Thank you very much. You have brought up very nicely that abstract concept of all the levels. Very nice. I used to feel this theory bringing to the practice sometimes really difficult.
Extremely.
Because when it comes to this period is where we are going to give the merit rating and all these things, that time all the trust will have the gaps. They feel that we are not taking care of the team. How to add to that?
You are talking in organization, because you used merit increases, organizational context. I think, quite frankly speaking, we do not have many ideal organizations. If, for example, I can only fall back on an example here, then come back to this. This is a very challenging, this is a real life challenge, business challenge that we all face as leaders. Very difficult to satisfy the other person, the person who is being appraised, and the benefit is going to be. If you look at the multinational companies, we all know Procter & Gamble, Unilever, Pepsi, Coke, they have, the appraisal systems and the KPI charts are so clear, so transparent, and they go through a multiple layer of evaluation and feedback. I'm sure Sitcom is also adopting multiple sources of feedback and appraisal. Like what we are doing in some organizations is, I cannot disclose the name. For if a manager is going to be appraised, he's not going to be appraised only by his GM. If an engineer is going to be appraised, he's not going to be appraised only by his manager. There will be a cross interface. He's going to be, there's a 4-quadrant appraisal system we have. There are many of the customers he's handling, or he being a customer to somebody else. How he's going to be, and 25% of the weightage is only going to his boss or his leader. And predominantly, if the system is very well practiced, and if you are going to give adequate notice for this appraisal, it cannot be, most of the companies fail in their appraisal and merit rating system because it is done in the last minute. For us, we are always busy in organization. We are too busy being busy. You ask, no, I'm very busy. Okay, what is the, that's a different discussion, but if you do it properly, there are ways, because it is finally a measurement and feedback system, if it is done, and if you let the employee know that it is going to be unbiased because 4 different people are rating, and then that is one way. Otherwise, make the systems and processes in your organization, which we talked about here, so strong, so transparent, but it takes normally for an organization to mature to that level, they say in an appraisal, where everyone trusts that appraisal system is very fair. It takes years. It could take decades also. It's not easy because we have this little bit of bias. Make it as less qualitative as possible. That's a long answer because no difficult questions. Thank you very much, and I enjoyed.